He is now focused on exposing the United States' manipulation of Japanese politics, media and education through a combination of bribes, murder, brainwashing, etc. His goal is to counter the United States propaganda and expose the Japanese people to the truth, so that they may free themselves from the colonial yoke and use their $5 trillion in overseas holdings to end world poverty and save the environment. He has worked in Japan for Knight Ridder, the International Financing Review, the Nippon Kizai Shingun English edition, and the South China Morning Post before moving to Forbes magazine, where he was the Asian bureau chief from 1998 to 2005. His investigative reports pursued scandals in the Japanese government and business world. After leaving Forbes magazine, he wrote a series of books in Japanese, some of which became bestsellers, and began to be published on the internet. In an effort to get more involved, he naturalized to Japan in 2007. As a Japanese citizen, he has now gained popularity on the internet after he conducted interviews with the reclusive David Rockefeller in November 2007. Please welcome Benjamin Fulford. Please welcome my guest to the end of our strange universe, Mr. Benjamin Fulford. It is an honor to have you here, sir. Thank you very much. BF, well, thanks for calling me on. Let's just open up with this. Give me the big picture. Who currently, right now there seems to be, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but there seems to be a war going on behind the scenes. Give me the big picture right now as to which factions and which groups are in control of where? The vacuum at the top of the international financial system, BF. Okay. I think what's happening is that there is a vacuum at the very top of the international financial system. What I mean by that is there is no agreement on the international financial treaties that govern the financial system right now. The Bretton Woods Mandate for the United States, France and England expired in 1994, and there has been no consensus about what to do following that. Old banking and royal families control the G5. What you see is Europe and the United States. The G5 are controlled by cabal of families that are what you could call the royal families and the old banking families. The names are well known. The Rothschilds, the Warburgs, names like Queen Elizabeth and Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands. They have always controlled the issuing of money. They had a secret group they called the Committee of 300 or the Bilderbergers, or whatever, that directed the story the planet went by. They set up the Cold War as a way to boost the military industry. 77 NO and aligned nations set up their own system. They never controlled what was known as the non-aligned nations. That was a group of 77 countries, including China, India, Indonesia and Yugoslavia, that were angry that the promises made at Bretton Woods were not being kept. They set up a different system. They pulled together their gold and their treasures and they wanted to have a Marshall Plan to develop Asia and Africa and lift them out of poverty. Kennedy and Sukarno's efforts were defeated. They gave the rights to this gold to President Kennedy and asked him to carry it out. He issued dollars that were controlled by the United States government, not by the privately owned Federal Reserve Board. He was assassinated. Then, President Sukarno of Indonesia, who was a signatory for the non-aligned nations, was driven out of office. Bonds were stolen by the Old World Order. At that point they illegally took these bonds. This would be Kissinger, David Eisenhower, Rockefeller. That whole cabal in the United States. You can get a good list of their names by looking at people who are members of the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission and the Bilderberg meetings. If they're on all three, you're talking top people. Okay? Okay. Yes. They set up trading platforms, BF. They set up these esoteric things called trading platforms. I was confused because I have been a financial journalist for a very long time and you never hear about such things. When I start talking to people at the BIS, who are right at the very tip top, they start talking about these things called trading platforms. Further research showed that what they are is an illegal fraud. That's the system they've been using to take government money and put it into the hands of private oligarchs. For example, the Kennedy bonds were supposed to be owned by the United States government and under the control of Congress and the Treasury Department. Instead, David Eisenhower Rockefeller has been using them for secret purposes that we are not aware of. There has been a long investigation into this issue by people who were trying to figure out what was going on ever since Kennedy was assassinated. They were trying to set up a fascist world government. The general consensus, what we're seeing in the big picture, is that the fascists who lost WWII were trying to set up a fascist world government. This would be certain factions in Japan, in the United States, in Italy and England and so on. They wanted a government controlled by them. They very nearly pulled it off. This is what everyone refers to as the New World Order. A new group has contacted Fulford, but now I've been contacted by a different group. They say they are the people who were responsible for 9/11. They say they did that deliberately, to try to cause a revolution in the United States. It set up a process of imploding the United States economy and setting the stage for a revolution. They claim that they are the same group that started the American Revolution, the French Revolution and the Russian Revolutions, and that they are anti-aristocrats and anti-people inheriting power. They believe in meritocracy. This is a group that just popped out recently. They are not associated with the other groups I have contacted, and have contacted me, before this. No one will think this passes the smell test. TW. Obviously, I don't need to say 200 of your comments and emails come in to know that almost everyone will have a very strongly negative reaction to this last section, and feel that Fulford is being fooled by the same people in a new disguise here. As just one of many examples, the Patriot Act conveniently came out almost immediately after 9/11, was many hundreds of pages long, and set the blueprint for a fascist takeover of the United States government. 9/11 almost immediately led to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, giving the Rockefeller cartel control of key land and resources in the oil-producing regions of the Middle East. The bottom line is that Fulford has put out a great deal of accurate information that is very threatening to the powers that were. For that same reason, they will do just about anything to try to get him embroiled in something that doesn't smell right to the common person, so he or she will then disavow everything he says as being disinformation. In my next interview with him, I intend to explore this area in much more detail, and find out what has compelled him to believe that this new group is not the proverbial wolf in sheep's clothing, or at least why he has been open-minded enough not to immediately discount them. I am surprised Ben hasn't surveyed the available evidence that the French and Russian revolutions, at least, were controlled and instigated by these same Old World Order elements. The proof was meticulously presented in New World Order, The Ancient Plan of Secret Societies by William T. Still, which is required reading for any serious student of these issues. Still's book can save a great deal of time and energy from searching across many different websites for this sort of information. What else did Fulford say about this new group in his paid blog? Fulford seemed to deliberately clarify and extend these remarks in the first entry he wrote for his paid blog after doing this show. This one excerpt from October 18th's entry helps clear things up a little more. And it does sound like it's the same people at work here, or at least a vying faction. The WDS has also been contacted by a group claiming to be the real Illuminati. They say their order was founded by King Solomon and Pythagoras and is opposed to an ancient satanic cult run by the royal families. Their representative claims this Illuminati group was behind the French, American and Russian revolutions. They say their membership consists of 6,000 highly influential individuals who are not part of the old dynastic families, the 13 bloodlines, also called Illuminati bloodlines by some writers. It is worth noting the people from the P2 Freemason Lodge in Italy also called themselves Illuminati, even though their leadership consisted of ancient inbred Roman aristocratic families. We have been able to independently confirm that this individual, who calls himself Alexander Romanov, is connected to MI6, KGB, the Australian Security Police, Canadian Military Intelligence and the International Drug Mafia. We confirm this through multiple sources including members of all of the above-mentioned agencies and groups. Romanov says he helped former world chess champion Bobby Fischer when he was arrested in Japan in 2004. He got Fischer an Icelandic passport to prevent him from being deported to the United States. Fischer then informed Romanov he was a grandmaster of the Illuminati. Romanov also says Fischer told him he was the original mastermind behind the 9/11 terrorist attack against the United States. The ultimate motive of this attack was to provoke a revolution in the United States against royalist control, who they refer to as the Old World Order, as opposed to the New World Order, this Illuminati group stands for. Given the use of the phrase New World Order by bloodline member Bush and his ilk, my advice to this individual was that his group needed to change the name of the regime they plan to set up to something that has fewer negative associations. Romanov says his group supports meritocracy, or rule by the most competent, and opposes hereditary rule by inbred families. It is interesting to note that Asian tribes and Yakuza groups are also opposed to nepotism. Why didn't the Japanese use their money for world relief? BF, you have to remember how I got involved in all this. I simply asked why the Japanese didn't use their own foreign exchange holdings for humanitarian purposes. The answer I got was that because they were killing Japanese prime ministers and politicians, the people you see in the government are just puppets for a foreign mafia. This is a very unexpected answer, I found. A layer of government we do not see, using murder. I got further involved when they sent people to try to kill me. What I found out is that above the public structure of power people see in the newspapers and stuff, there exist groups that have the ability to murder. That means spy agencies, gangsters and militaries. These people, who at the end of the day will resort to force if necessary, are a layer of government we do not see. They are doing everything they can to avoid defeat. There is all sorts of intrigue going on now because we're trying to take control of the profits of creating money away from this cabal that wants a fascist world government. They've been working so long and so hard on this great plan of theirs that they are doing everything they can to prevent this. In a way, it is a psychological battle as much as anything, because finance essentially is the process of deciding what humanity does in the future. A lot of us around the world, and this is especially true outside of the Western countries, are sick and tired of this cabal carrying out wars for no real reason except to make money. The Cold War had a lot of people fooled. It did do a lot for the development of industry, the space race and all that. The rest of the world has cut off their money when they moved to the so-called war on terrorism, which was so obviously phony, designed to put the United States in perpetual war over the next 30 to 40 years. Everyone, in the non-aligned nations, said, why? Why are we giving money to these people? The reason why you are now having a crisis with the United States and the euro is that they rely on the rest of the world to finance them. They don't have enough of their own, real money. And when I say real money, I mean money backed by goods and services that really exist, and are not just numbers they put in the computers. Yes. The case of the stolen bonds in Italy, BF, one of the cases they've been using to try get to the bottom of this whole mystery, and to get this cabal, has been the one in June 2009 where 2 Japanese were detained in Italy with $134.5 billion worth of bonds. I remember it very well. They were trying to say that the bonds looked completely great, but oh, they're fake treasury bonds, even though nobody could tell the difference. BF, and they weren't arrested. They had diplomatic passports. In fact, I talked to both of the people who were seized. As well, I was invited by the Italian Freemason P2 Lodge to Italy to discuss this whole issue. It was very clear that these bonds were stolen. There was no legal activity. They've been trying to cash them in. They took them to the Chinese Communist government. They took them to the Senate Finance Committee. follow the money. They've been followed 24 hours a day to see what they're going to do with these bonds they stole, and to see what the trail led to.